Well, hey YouTube, it's Elvis Ammo here. Hey, today I'm doing a reloading Newbies edition. I've been meaning to do this video for a long time, and I've been asked to do it I can't tell you how many times. And I had a lady comment and said, look, we don't know nothing. People who don't know how to reload, so let's cool it with some of the terminology that nobody knows what you're talking about. And I agree. I've always wanted to do a video like this. So let's just start real simple, because honestly, to get started, this is a very simple process. Now, it is for people who like to have some busy work that's and they can celebrate when they go to the range and shoot their gun because they did it all themselves. And so people ask the question, can I save money starting out reloading? And there's some tough guys out there that like to say, no, you'll never save any money reloading. Well, I disagree with that. But it's only because I save money reloading. See, some people will, so there's really not a clear answer, for people who say you won't save money or you will save money. The fact is, it depends on how you're trying to accomplish the goal. It's like, for instance, I reload, I cast, all these bullets, right? We're going to start out with 9mm here. So let's just say this. Now there is a cost up front kind of deal, right? But like, for instance, I will cast my bullets. I get my lead, for little or nothing, and then so I cast my bullets. Right now I'm still casting, I'm still loading 9mm for probably 4 cents a piece, is what it costs me. And then I have a family member that I'll charge 2 or 3 times that amount, and it's still half the price that he would pay. So for instance, okay, so I'm kind of shooting for free except for all the equipment that I buy. That's probably it. So I'm just giving you my example, okay? So that's just a for instance is all it is. But all of this stuff can be overwhelming, and I hear this all the time from people. They say, it's overwhelming. And I agree, it can be. So what we're going to do today is we're just going to tone things down, and we're going to take one step at a time. All right. Well, first of all, in this video, this will be the Newbies edition, and this will be edition number 1. I'm not sure if it'll go to 2 or 3 or just 2, or it'll probably go to 3. I'm thinking. So, because I want to keep this short, I don't want to overwhelm the viewers that are watching this. And you guys, first of all, if you guys like this kind of video, give me a thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed and you're watching my videos, like I know that a bunch of you are, just go ahead and subscribe. It will help things out for these videos to be promoted, and it'll be a good thing, I promise. Go ahead and do that. So anyway, so what we're going to do is we're just going to start out today with what a bullet is. We're going to disassemble it, and we're going to, in the reloading process, we're going to need to reassemble it, correct? It's just going to be that simple. But I guess the more overwhelming part, if there is one, is maybe with equipment, because there's so much of it. There's so many of everything, presses and measuring instruments and scales and all of that kind of thing. Well, this is going to be real simple. So let's go ahead and take this bullet apart. So that'll be the first thing that we do. And as I'm doing these things, you can take note of the items that I'm using. Now you don't have to have one of these, but if you ever want to pull a bullet apart, these are relatively cheap. They're just a way to, it's a bullet puller, and it uses, inertia. You just hit the, now the way I do this is I take all the crap out of there that they sell with these things, because I don't need no collets and all that for my bullet. I just simply go over here to my 9mm die set from Lee that has a what am I looking for right there? Okay, yeah, so that's the correct one that was in there. So there's a so you just take that that bullet and you put it in your cedar there, and you set it down right there, and you screw it down tight like that. And I just put tape over this, probably like everybody does, so powder don't come flying out of it. And now you have your bullet just sitting there. And now that was just a factory round, so I wanted you to see what just a factory round looks like. All right. So then what happens is you have your cedar there, and your powder and your bullet, just like that. Get it all out of there. Alright, so now let's look at what we got here. So we just took a bullet apart, made a mess. So what we have here is some powder, bullet, and a case. Alright, that's what we got here. Now what do we need? You've seen what we needed to take this apart. Now whenever you're assembling these items, that is all we're doing. Okay, all the equipment that we need is only to be able to get a primer back in this case. Get a primer back in the case. We need to weigh the powder and put it in the case, and we need to know what the bullet weighs and put it in the case, and then we're just going to reassemble it. And that's all this equipment is for. Alright, so it's just that simple. So here we have some powder. So we're going to need a scale. This is probably the hardest part, okay, because scales are real wonky. Some of them work great and some of them don't work so great, but most of them work just fine, okay, and that's all you need to know. This is my favorite scale, and probably one of the cheapest ones that I have that I can't, none of us can find anymore. I'll just set that aside. But these are all over the place, and they come with different names. You've seen Frankfurt Arsenal, you'll see Lyman. Let's see, I've got scales all over the place. Yep, there's a Lyman, and it's kind of the same kind of scale as this one is. But quite honestly, I guess if I was going to get a scale that I didn't like, that I kind of trust, it'd be that. So there you go. These are kind of all over the place, and sometimes they have different names on them. This one's called a Frankfurt Arsenal, but you can kind of look at it and you'll see the other ones and you'll be like, yeah, it's the same scale with the different name on it. So anyway, so I'm at the moment, I'm not really trying to weigh this powder, and I'm not trying to weigh the bullet or the case. Really what I wanted you to see is us disassembling a bullet right from the factory. Those items, this primer, that bullet, and that powder is all we're trying to get put together, and we're trying to get it to put together so it'll fit in our gun and shoot it. So now let's talk about the equipment that we need to make that happen. Okay, well, you've seen, you know, the bullet puller here. That's one item that's nice to have, but you don't have to have. All right. Second of all is you're going to need, you know, as far as components go, you're going to need some primers, some small pistol primers of whatever kind you can find, it doesn't matter. And you're going to need some bullets. These bullets right here are plated bullets. Alright, I bought those from Everglades. It's a company called Everglades, and they sell components like this. These are plated. So in other words, they just use a process called electrolysis to attract the copper to the lead bullet. That's all it is. It's plated. Right? These are jacketed. So what they do with these is they just swage these jackets and they melt lead into the jacket, I guess, something like that. Good enough. That's just a jacketed bullet. All right. And the reason we're talking about this a little bit is because the first thing that you guys need to get, you newbies, is you need to get some load data. Alright, just go ahead and you need at least one decent book. That's a Lyman 50th edition. That's great. But you know, like for instance, when you buy a set of these dies, we'll be talking about that later. You know, it'll actually give you some load data on there, like that right there. It'll actually give you some load data, but you know, it might not be all the load data that you want to use, and we'll get to that in a minute. So the other items that you're going to need is you're going to need some calipers, okay? Because you're going to need to measure. You're going to need to measure some things, and you'll find out in the next video. You know, you'll need to measure things like, you know, what is the overall length of that bullet. That's 1.131. You're going to need to know that. You might need to know, you know, what the mouth of the bullet, the measurement on it. You know, for instance, I don't know. I mean, mostly on 9mm, you're going to really need to be measuring your overall length is most of what you're going to be measuring. But you need to know. So you need some calipers. And I suggest, I like these digital calipers the best. They're quick and easy to see for me. But you know, the prepper in me says I gotta have some calipers with this dial on it that don't take batteries, and I can measure anything that I want anytime, whether I have batteries or not. Okay, and as you can see, I have more than one set of those. All right, and I do use those. Sometimes I'll check things, you know, and double check things and make sure that these are doing good, that kind of thing. So if you can afford a pair, get a pair of each. But if you can't, just start out with these. You'll probably be happier. So you'll need so far you need calipers, a scale, a bullet puller, and see, I'll just set all this down right here. I'll just move my little happy scale over there. And obviously you're going to need components. And the other thing that you're going to need is some brass. So what I done is there's some brass. Believe it or not, you see how nice and clean that is? I'm going to show you in probably the last video. I'm going to show you how to clean this brass with just hardly nothing. Okay, I'm going to show you how you can do it, because I don't want people to be overwhelmed financially either. I'll show you a couple of items that you can get that'll help you clean your brass, but I'll also show you how you can do it kind of like washing the dishes by hand, and just come up with quick clean brass that took me about 20 minutes to do. So and most of you viewers are the brass snobs. Y'all know that. Not me. You guys like y'all's brass looking real good, and I don't really care that much. That's just me. So I actually clean that brass better than the brass that I normally use for myself. This is what most of my brass looks like right here. This actually cleaned and lubed brass, if you want to see it. Alright, so I don't take a lot of time making it look pretty and shiny. I just want it clean. So that's a thing as well. Okay, so now what you're going to need is you're going to need a press. This is the press that I'm going to be using in this series. Okay, and it's called the Lee Classic Turret Press. Okay, that's what I'm going to be using. Alright, now I am not going to confuse everybody with a bunch of different kinds of presses. There are a ton of them out there, and quite honestly, this is true among all of us reloaders. By the way, we all agree that most of the name brands, almost all of them, the name brand presses and stuff like that, are good. Okay, and then there's some that we like better. One of us like one better over another because of our preferences. All right, so I've happened to put a lot of time behind this one, so I really like it. But I've seen a lot of them out there, and new ones that have come out that I'm like, wow, that is great. So anyway, don't get hung up on the name. If you start reloading, you'll probably end up with different name brands using different things. You just will. You'll have some Lee and some Lyman and some RCBS, and all of those things. And you're going to like them, and nobody's going to even be mad at you for it. But true story. So let's talk about the equipment. Okay, so with a turret press, for instance, there's a single stage press. There's a turret press, which is this. This is kind of between the single stage and the progressive press, where every time you pull the arm, that thing will just spin automatically and spit out bullets and all that kind of thing. The progressive press. Okay, so here's why I suggest maybe starting with this. But I don't have anything against, depending on what you're going to load, I don't have anything against just starting out with, you can start out with a Dillon 750 progressive press, and you'll be able to figure it out just fine with the information that I'm going to give you today. Because really, or in this series, because really, the information that I'm going to give you is really just so that you can reload correctly and safely. That's it. So that whenever you're finished with that round, you can put it in your gun and shoot it and smile. That's it. So it doesn't really matter whether you're doing it on a single stage, a turret press, or a progressive press. But in this series, and when I'm done with this series, if you want me to show you the same process on a single stage or on a progressive press, I'll probably do it for you. It's not a problem. I really will. So this with this press right here, this is something that I really like a lot. I've used it a lot, and what you'll find, one of the reasons you'll never be sorry for having a second press, even if you decide to get a progressive press later because you're going to be shooting a lot and reloading a lot at a time and that kind of thing. So you'll never be sorry because you'll be able to use this turret press for things that you may not foresee, like maybe trimming cases when you start loading for rifles, or you might just start using it for prepping cases. You might use it for sizing cast bullets and different things like that. So you're never going to be sorry for getting one to start with. You'll probably always have it mounted on your bench along with whatever else you decide to get later. So with that out of the way, so you have this turret press, and what this one in particular will do is you can add this stem. I'm not going to get into a lot of detail here on the press so much because you're going to see it running in the next video, because what we're going to do in the next video is we are going to go over, you know, some die sets and what they're for and why you should get one over another, that kind of thing. And then you're going to see how this press operates, and most of them operate this way. They just all have just little small features that make it different one from another, kind of thing. You know, like you'll have a priming system for large and small primers, for instance, on the press. And so today we're just going to keep it short and sweet. The equipment that you need, and while we're loading, we'll make note of every piece of equipment that we use, so that you'll be able to replicate that yourself. Okay, so far that everything that I've talked about is what you need. But all of you new folks out there, please you don't have to get the Lyman 50. You can get the Hornady book. There's a lot of reloading books out there, and there's also websites like Hodgdon Powder. You can go Hodgdon Powder's website and plug in the weight bullet that you have, the type of powder that you want to use, and it will give you data that way as well. But one of the reasons you gotta have something like this is, I'm just going to give you a quick for instance, okay? Where? I'm going to give you a for instance on, we're dealing with 9mm. What you're going to be able to see eyes on, okay? This is your case right here. Semi Specs tells you that your case needs to be these dimensions, okay? You know, it gives you the width at the base, at the head of the case, at the mouth of the case. It tells you what the overall length, the maximum overall length, the maximum overall length of the case, and then it tells you here your trim to if you have to trim the case. Now let me be clear, on most pistol cases there's no trimming to do, so you can just forget about that. I never have to trim a 9mm case. I'm just throwing that out there. But it's not just 9mm that you might load. But anyway, this gives you just a boatload of information to read up on. And then you can also, for instance, look in your data right here. You have a 90 grain, a 95 grain bullet, 115 grain bullet. You can look at the powder selection that they offer for these bullets. Not only that, but you might be able to, one little trick that reloaders like to do is, for instance, they'll be like, like for me, I like an economical powder. Okay, so I've found an economical powder that I use for a lot of this kind of stuff, and it turns out, tight group, I can use, a smaller amount of powder, so the pound might last me a little longer. It'll also allow you to see what kind of powders you can buy to load in 9mm, for instance. But a lot of these powders will load across a wide span of pistols, and that's the other thing that you might want to look at. What powder, if I buy this powder, can I load this other cartridge that I like as well? And we'll talk about that more in the next video. Get you some load data, stock up on some equipment. If you got some friends that have some brass, ask them for it. Pick it up at the range if you see it on the cartridges that you load for, and even the ones that you don't, because you may later. So, and if you're planning on casting bullets, go ahead and start collecting some lead where you can. But I think enough said in this first Newbies video, and then we'll move on to selecting dies and loading some cases in the next one. I'll talk to you guys in the next video.